never know where you're going to go in the NFL draft. However, learning an offense and prepping yourself for that and that process, I think is very valuable.
Ladies and gentlemen, guys and gals, dudes and dames, welcome back to another episode of the Sports Seriously NFL podcast, part of the Sports Seriously Network, proudly presented to you by USA Today. As always, I am your party host, Joe Rivera, and along with me, as always, are two of the preeminent ball knowers at USA Today Sports, and that's Jacob Kamiker and Chris Bumbaka. We got a fun one today, fellas, and just say hi in a minute, but we're a week out from the NFL draft. Boom, how you feeling, man? You excited? I know we haven't done this in a while.
What's up, fellas? Always great to be here. What a time of year it is. Mid-April, just barreling toward night one of the draft. The 3-day extravaganza that comes with it. It's a great time of year, in my opinion.
Yes, and Jacob, I know you feel the same, my friend. This is almost like a second Christmas for you.
Oh yeah, there's nothing better, Joe, than you get the first 75-degree day of the year like we got here today. And I'm just gonna be cooped up inside for the entire part of it, just watching NFL draft coverage, prospect tape, and figuring everything out. This is what I live for, Joe. So I would not have it any other way.
I know you probably haven't seen blue skies since last August, Jacob, but that's just the way that we do it around here, right? We're always grinding. So, boom, I know you had a recent chat with Fernando Mendoza, which we'll also get to a little bit later in this show, but any quick high 30,000-foot view takeaways from your talk?
Yeah, we sat down with Fernando for about 12 minutes, I think it was, so not the longest chat, but he is everything that you see on TV during those post-game interviews. I know that he's in the heat of this moment during those chats, but he was just as excited and humble and cool, in my opinion, as he was during those interviews when we sat down. We talked a lot about finance and business, and it was an interesting look into how he prepares himself for not only football, but life in general.
So from Fernando Mendoza's business to the business of the NFL draft, fellas, and we know it certainly appears as though Fernando Mendoza is going to go number 1 overall to the Las Vegas Raiders. So the draft probably starts at 2 with your New York Jets, right? And there's been a lot of debate recently. Arvell Reese, David Bailey. Who are the Jets going to go with at number 2? A couple of defenders there. But Jacob, I want to throw to you first here. The draft, like we said, starts at 2. If you're Darren Muji, Jets general manager, who are you turning to? Who's the name on the card when you turn it in on Thursday night?
Yeah, so Joe, I think this is all about what the Jets need this season, and that's why I think the pick's going to end up being David Bailey. The Jets are weirdly in a situation where they have to win now. Aaron Glenn's going into the season on the hot seat, so I think they're going to look at Bailey and say, hey, this guy's a pro-ready pass rusher. He's got great bend and speed off the edge. He was super productive in his lone season at Texas Tech. He led the FBS with 14.5 sacks. So I think they're going to look at him and say, hey, this guy may not have the same ceiling as Reese, who's a potential hybrid player who's still developing on the edge and is only, I think, going to be 21 years old during his rookie season. But I think they're going to look at Bailey and say, this guy's proven productive. He's going to slot right in on the edge and give us an instant impact player. So I think they do that. But, it wouldn't surprise me either way. I just think that they need to bank on the safer option right now if they want to save their jobs this season.
Boom, what's your take on what the Jets are going to do at number 2?
No, I totally get what Jacob is saying when it comes to the win now part of this for Glenn and the Jets, right? But he's not the one turning the card in at the end of the day. Joe said it. It's Darren Mugi, and I feel like they are just on separate timelines. This is how the Jets do things. I'm going Arvell Reese at 2 because I just think that Mugi is taking the longer view here. And in my opinion, Reese projects better despite the production pedigree of Bailey, but I'm going Arvell Reese at 2.
So here's the thing, guys. Listen, I'm the apologist here. We know this. You see me wearing the shirt, all these things, but the Gotham green. But I just don't view, I know Aaron Glenn had a really bad first year, right? I don't think Glenn's in a situation where he's on the hot seat entering the season. Like, I know there's a lot to prove, but I just look at him as like, listen, you look at their free agency moves, you look at what they've done, and you're going to see a completely different defense moving forward. He's going to call the defense. They gutted half the staff. It's one of those situations where, maybe the offseason kind of tells you a little bit about what his future is going to be and what the draft selection is going to be about Glenn's future, right? So I think if it is Bailey, that kind of tells you, like, yeah, to your point, Jacob, that maybe he is on the hot seat and they need a proven guy. They need a proven pass rusher right now. But if it's Reese, that might tell you that, Glenn's hands-on on this and they're going to develop a guy. Jacob, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think you have a good point there. And when I say win now for Aaron Glenn, I'm not saying like they don't have to make the playoffs or anything. They just need to show more of an ability to compete than they did last season. But to your point, they've completely rebuilt the roster. They had a lot of trades in season last year. But the thing I keep coming back to, Joe, is they kind of overhauled the coaching staff around Aaron Glenn. So that signals to me that Woody Johnson, the owner there, I mean, he's been vocal about how he wasn't happy with the team's performance. So I think I'm looking at it from the lens of like, hey, if they have another season where they win 5, 6 games and aren't competitive enough, that might not be enough to save Glenn. But again, I think to your point, if these upgrades can make the roster, a 7-win team and just look better and more cohesive under Glenn, I could see him keeping his job. So when I say win now, it's less about being a team that's actually, going to be a contender or a playoff team. And it's more about saying, hey, you got to just show more competitive fire than what we saw last year. And the upgrades they've made should hopefully allow them to do that.
Still playing in a tough division, so we'll see how it works out for the Jets, who need to keep infusing this team with talent, no doubt about it. And speaking of talent, one of the most talented players in the NFL draft boom, and that's Ohio State safety Caleb Downs. And here's a guy who a lot of people think is a potential top 10, top 5 talent, period, in the draft. But there's that old bugaboo, the positional value, right? You hear positional value. Is it too high to take a safety number 5 in the top 5 or in the top 10? But how far do you think, what's the range for Caleb Downs, Boom? Where do you think the safety could go?
Yeah, Joe, you said it. He's absolutely one of my favorite players in this draft. I know that there was some knee injury stuff that scared some teams off early in the process, but we haven't heard a lot about that lately. And yes, he doesn't play a premium position, but I want a winning football player who could clean up my messes on the back end and make game-changing plays when he's not doing that. So what would shock me is him falling into that 10-12 range. Obviously, the Cowboys picking at 12, but I don't really expect them to stay there either. I know we'll talk about that more in a little bit, but yeah, I'm going to say like the 9 range, the 9-10 range for Downs. I expect him to be swooped up by then. And I just love the player, man. I just love everything that he brings from a football acumen perspective, and he's got the pedigree. I'm going to throw it out there a lot. Like, for me, when it comes to the draft, I need to see it. Like, let me see it, and then I'll believe it.
Mhm. Jacob, what do you think? And I mean, Caleb Downs is a guy that's been, I'm going to say controversial, but like, again, some people have him as a top 10 talent, top 5 talent. You look at big boards everywhere and you see his name up there in the top 5, but he might not land in the top 5 or the top 10 in this draft. What's your projection on Downs?
Yeah, I think Downs is kind of the perfect microcosm of this year's draft. There's a lot of elite blue chip players at positions that don't have that blue chip positional value. We see running back, linebacker, safety like Jeremiah Love, Caleb Downs, Arvell Reese to an extent, though he plays on the edge, and Sonny Styles. All these guys are at the non-traditional positions that we're probably going to see them go in the top 10. But I do think that Downs should be a top 5 pick on talent alone. I think there is a chance that he could fall into that 10 to 12 range that you mentioned, Boom. And it's because of the positional value thing. I just go back to history and I'm just looking at it. The last time we saw a safety go in the top 10 was Jamal Adams when he went 6th overall in 2017. Last time we saw a safety go in the top 5, I believe, was Eric Berry many, many moons ago. So I'm thinking that Downs, eventually the talent's going to outweigh the teams looking and saying, hey, he plays safety. Safety's not a high-end need for us or not a high-end position. And they're going to see that talent. But I think some of these teams picking in that sort of 7 to 12 range, like the Commanders, the Saints, the Chiefs, all teams that could consider him, but they might look and say, hey, we need an edge rusher. Hey, we need a receiver. Hey, we need an offensive tackle. These guys are at higher value positions than safety. So I think he could end up falling into the Cowboys' lap in 12. And at that point, Jerry Jones would sprint that card in. No one would be able to stop him even at his 83-year age. So I would be I'd be excited to see that happen. But it sort of reminds me of the Kyle Hamilton draft with the Ravens. Everyone was saying Hamilton was a top 10 talent. He still made it to the Ravens in that tween range. So I think we might see the same with Downs, and it would be a surprise, but not a shock.
And everybody, when the Ravens took Kyle Hamilton, we're like, well, that's a great pick. So I don't know. I mean, I just don't know why teams aren't going to learn from a pick like that, a pick like Eman Wari. yes, like it's an apples and oranges thing. The context is all different, but I don't see why teams see that and then say, all right, now let's just stay back with positional value. And what, Jacob, for the Jerry thing, like, is it the star power thing? Like, it'll just overcome Jerry and he'll have to run it in, as you say? Or is it, because to me, like, he only cares about, like, running back, wide receiver, pass rusher. So the fact that he would sprint in a safety card is a little surprising to me. But if it's the star power thing, then I guess I get it.
It's the star power and the fact that the Cowboys just have so many needs on defense. So to get like one of the blue chip defenders in this class at 12, I think Jerry would be super excited about that. But you're right. He cares more about the running backs, the receivers, and more lately the offensive line. Like that's been where his team has really made hay in the first round. But I do think he'd be that excited about Caleb Downs. And I think a lot of teams would be. But as we've seen, to your point, Boom, these teams should learn from the Kyle Hamilton mistake. But often NFL teams do not learn from their mistakes and make the same mistakes repeatedly. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens here, though. It's going to be fascinating.
All right, guys. I think, in my opinion, I think the biggest story of night one and potentially night two, rounds 2 and 3 of the draft, is Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson. Now, you've seen lots of variance on where this guy will go in mock drafts. What the analysts are saying, he could go top 15, 16, 20. He could fall to day 2 of the draft. I mean, I'm not sure where Ty Simpson is going to go. I think nobody knows how to evaluate a quarterback in the NFL. I think that's just, it's a lot of luck that goes into it, right? But where do we see, Jacob, where do we see Ty Simpson going here? I mean, give us your best guesstimate on where the Alabama passer is going to land.
Yeah, so look, I'm going to preface this by saying I like Ty Simpson more than most. I think he displays ideal accuracy and ball placement when he's on. He's great at navigating the pocket, but he's still just a one-year starter, and he's going to need time to develop at the NFL level. So I think that's going to be key in the team that decides to take him. So while I'd potentially be comfortable looking at him and saying, hey, this guy has the tools needed to develop into a good quarterback, let's take him in the middle of the first round, like the Jets at 16. If they did that, I would say, that makes sense. They have a lot of top 50 picks. Ty Simpson learning behind Geno Smith a year could end up panning out for them. But I think it's more likely that Ty Simpson sort of ends up getting the Jackson Dart treatment where a lot of NFL teams will look at him and say, man, this guy has the tools, but he might need some time to develop. We'll let him go in that late first, early second round range. And I think if a team likes him enough, like maybe the Cardinals, they'll look as we get later into that first round and say, hey, let's just move into the end of the first round, grab our guy Ty Simpson, let him develop behind the veteran. We'll have had another early pick. If it's the Cardinals, they'll have the 3rd overall pick. If it's the Jets, they would have had 2 other first round picks. So I think we're going to see something like that happen with Ty Simpson. I think it's possible he could go on day 2, but I don't think that he's going to last super long in the second round if he's still on the board. So I'm keeping an eye on that late first round range. I think that's where he most likely ends up. He's an intriguing prospect. I really think he has the potential, but it is going to be an element of time with him. He's not going to be a starter right away. You're going to be confident and trusting with the ball, but maybe 2027, you could throw him in there and say, hey, this guy could end up being doing a decent job for us.
Boom, what do you think? What's Ty Simpson's draft variance here? Where do you see him landing?
No, it's in 2027, then, maybe he's a starter, and then 2028, he needs more time, 2029, he needs more time, and then he's a bust and a waste of a first-round pick. So, I agree with what Jacob said about the Jackson Dart comparison, only in terms of, like, that's how he's going to be picked. It's going to be a trade-in back of the first round, probably, and some team that has scouted him and sees him as that project that Jacob described there, and pulls the trigger on him. Would I do it personally? No, I wouldn't. I'll just be straight up. Like, I don't really see it with Simpson outside of the highlights that Jacob mentioned. Like, yeah, he could throw a good ball, but we alluded to it a little earlier. Like, my philosophy, I got to see it over sustained period. And he had 8 or 9 good games. That's great. Good for him. I'm happy for the kid. He's going to make a lot of money because of it. And he's going to have a career because of it. But if I'm the one who's in charge of finding my quarterback of the future, it's just not going to be Ty Simpson for me. So he just hasn't played enough football for me to make that leap, and I would be nervous taking him.
Yeah, I think that's fair, Boom. And I think if you're a team that I suspect that a lot of teams probably have a second-round grade on Simpson because of the lack of starts, because of the frame. He's not a big kid. because of all of these things, like not having the sustained success, like you said, Boom. But I think what maybe works in Simpson's favor a little bit is a team looking in and say, well, we can trade up into the first and get that fifth-year option on them and give ourselves a little bit of extra time to figure it out, right? Where, listen, for me, if you're saying, and listen, again, you can never project these things a year round. I don't think anybody thought at this point last year that Fernando Mendoza would be the #1 overall pick. Projected #1 overall pick in this year's draft, right? But if you're looking at the 2027 draft and you're saying Arch Manning's going to be there and all these quarterbacks are going to be there, and you say, well, why would I take and force myself into a Ty Simpson this year and then just sit him this year when I could take my chances next year and potentially take a quarterback next year and figure it out from there, right? So, yeah, I don't know with Simpson, man. I think the Jackson Dart thing is spot on, Jacob. Like, it's going to be a team, and Boom, like you said, it's going to be a team that wants to jump back into the first round, give themselves the contract, the option to have the fifth-year option on them, give themselves a little bit of extra time. But he's going to be an interesting thing, man. It's going to be an interesting thing to see where Simpson goes on draft night. All right, guys. Carnell Tate, Kai Lemon, Jordan Tyson. These are all a lot of receivers. You're hearing the Nebraska wide receiver right now,
Nice
Omar
receiver
Cooper
class.
Jr. What's that?
Nice receiver class.
And that's a nice receiver class here, right? What do we think, Boom? There's going to be a lot of them taken in the first round. We know that there's going to be a run on them. There usually are. What do you think, Boom? What's your take on the receiver class this year? Where's the run going to start in the first round?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the picks here. Kind of like in that teen range where you have the Rams at 13 and the Jets at 16. I think it's going to start with the Jets and Dolphins, who are picking at 11. And there is going to be some jockeying there. And I would like to see the Jets come up, actually, and take the guy that they believe in, using that draft capital that they have, and getting that wide receiver, not only as your future quarterback's favorite target, but some Garrett Wilson insurance there. And so the Dolphins, Jets, Rams range there in the top of the teens is kind of where I see it happening. Normally it's later. Like I remember when Justin Jefferson was drafted in the 20s, there was like a run on receivers then. Usually see it in the 20s, but I think with the caliber of the class this year and the way that the team needs are shaking out and where the picks are, we'll see it a little bit earlier this year.
Yeah, Jacob, before I get to you, this is a nice class. You see lots of guys. Denzel Boston's a guy that sticks out to me, too. He's a second-round pick, big frame, big body guy. A lot of receivers with very intriguing skill sets, all up and down, right? We talked about Garrett Wilson with the Garrett Wilson draft, and it was Jameson Williams, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, the Saints traded up to get him. So, listen, people love receivers now, and you got to have two in the NFL, right? Like, you got to have two. So, Jacob, what do you think? Where's this receiver run going to start on the first round?
Yeah, I think Boom is spot on. I look at that, pocket of picks from 13 to 16. You got the Rams at 13, the Ravens at 14, and the Jets at 16. And I think all of them could feasibly take a receiver. I mean, the Rams are in win now mode around Matthew Stafford ahead of his age 38 season. So, if a guy like Makai Lemon is on the board for them, just a smooth slot separator to go with Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua, I think that the Rams would be very excited about that. The Ravens have Zay Flowers, but they could use, an upgrade across from him. So, you look at Jordan Tyson. If he's on the board there, another guy who just separates naturally. He's kind of like, the Ravens have Rashad Bateman, but Jordan Tyson is a much better version of Rashad Bateman. Rashad Bateman's a fine depth player, but he's not a guy you want to count on as your number 2. So I think Tyson there makes sense. Then the Jets at 16. Joe, you mentioned Denzel Boston. I think he could go in the first round. I think the Jets, if all the top receivers are off the board at 16, could consider him. But I'm also keeping an eye on a guy who's been rising through this draft process. Indiana's Omar Cooper Jr. He has won over a lot of people. He's got a Deebo Samuel type skill set. So I think a lot of teams are going to look at him and say, like, hey, this is just a guy, if we get the ball in his hands, he can make a lot of plays for us. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on him in the top 20 picks as well. But I think it's going to come towards the beginning of the teens to the middle of it. We're going to see 3-4 receivers come off the board. And I do think the Dolphins will consider a receiver too, like you said, Boom. I'm just not sure where they're going to go because they have so many needs. Like they could take anything and it wouldn't surprise me. Yeah. Could be anything. Could be an offensive line in there. That's what I have right now, Spencer Fiano. So, yeah.
Yeah, if you're the Dolphins, I mean, you just paid Malik Willis all this money, right? Like you did trade Jalen Waddle, and say to yourself, like, well, who's he throwing to at this point, right? Like, Tyreek's gone. What do you think? Dolphins, again, very interesting. I hate to use the word interesting, but Jacob, the Dolphins are an interesting team in this draft. What do you think they're going to do night one?
Yeah, so currently they have 2 first-round picks, so I kinda think that they might take a receiver with that 30th overall pick and hope that maybe like a KC Concepcion is available because he's a
Ooh,
shifty little type receiver with breakaway speed who's a good punt returner. And I think they might use the 11th pick on just say, hey, who's the best player on our board available? I think Spencer Fano, the offensive tackle from Utah, he's a really interesting guy for them because he could play any of the 5 positions up front on the offensive line. So you're upgrading the protection in front of Malik Willis. I think that'll be key. And obviously they need receiver badly, but I think because of the depth of this class, they might look at the 11th pick and say, hey, do we want a Jordan Tyson here? Or do we want a KC Concepcion later and a Spencer Fano here? So it's going to be really, really fascinating to see what they do. But again, nothing would surprise me with that 11th pick.
then boom. I want to ask you the same question. You're in John Eric Sullivan's chair, new general manager of the Dolphins. What's your strategy entering night one?
Strategy entering night one. Well, first of all, there's no offer that I'm not willing to hear for 11, which I feel like could be an inflection point in the draft because you have KC and then who is it? Cincinnati picking right before. So you could see like a couple defenders go there. So maybe somebody's looking to get in on that, start that receiver run at 11 that we were just talking about. So I'm maybe looking to get out of there and just build more picks unless I'm really in love with an offensive line building block like a Fano and he's still there. So
Yeah,
I'm probably
that all
trading
makes-
out. I'm a
Yeah.
big fan of trading out. That's
Yeah, I
just-
mean, trading out, trading down is always a smart move, right? I mean, you want as many lottery tickets as you can get. I mean, you just look at the hit rate on first round picks. You look at any draft, right? It's minimal. Like there's this myth, and this kind of leads into our next question. There's this myth that there are like good drafters as GMs in the NFL. And like for some organizations, it's true, right? But the idea that you could just get a GM who can draft well and like just find a guy is it's incredibly rare, right? Like most of the draft, they just don't work. And like there's this idea that like, oh, on day 3 you're gonna find lots of diamonds in the rough. Go look at the stats on day 3, man. Go look at the stats on like round 5 through 7 guys. Like those guys almost never work out. You know, respect to them, but they just almost never work out. So I don't know. I just think that there's a lot of misconceptions about what general managers can do in the draft, and like the idea of like getting an automatic hit maker as a general manager. It's just not realistic. It's not realistic. So nobody knows anything. Nobody knows anything is really the moral of the story. And that leads us into our last question here before we get into our mock draft. But drafting for need versus best player available, right? This is draft philosophy questions, right? I think we kind of spoke about it a little bit before. As GM or front office, Jacob, how do you go about that decision in the moment, right? If you know you have a need at quarterback, you know you have a need at offensive tackle, but maybe the player that's there isn't great. Do you shift your philosophy? What's your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on philosophy? Best player available versus drafting for need?
Yeah, so I like to think of it as like a tiered value system. You know, if there's a player on the board who isn't necessarily a need, but is far and away the best guy there, you have to take him because you're just banking on the fact that saying, hey, this guy's going to be great. We're confident he's going to be great. Yeah, it may not be a need now, but it could be a need 2 years down the line. So when you get a guy like that, you have to take him. However, if there's like a cluster of similarly graded players on your board, or you're saying, hey, we like these 3 guys pretty equally, then you take the one that fills a position in need more. Again, provided that your confidence in the trio you're talking about is relatively similar. And I think we're going to see positional value have an impact on that as well. And I think you can point to a good example of this is the Baltimore Ravens this year. They're going to be having the 14th pick. They have a huge need at left guard, right? So they could target Vega Ioane from Penn State, who's considered, plug and play left guard. But is a guard viewed in the same lens as a receiver at the NFL level? Probably not. So if the Ravens say have similar grades on Ioane and someone like Jordan Tyson or Mekhi Lemon, then I think they would go with the receiver, even though their bigger need is probably at the guard spot.
I'm a big BPA guy. I love best player available. That's just kind of like the philosophy I feel like I kind of grew up around watching. And you kind of said it there, Jacob, but like everything is a need in the NFL. Like there is no like, oh, we're set here unless you have a franchise quarterback, right? Like you're gonna need players at some point. Injuries happen, contracts, trades, all that stuff. So the draft is just like one modem of player acquisition. It might be the cheapest in some respects, so like it makes sense for your team if you want to win and succeed in the salary cap era. Then like yes, you need to draft well. But for me, and just bringing it full circle, like when we're talking about the Ravens and we're talking about the Eagles, what do those teams do is that they keep it simple and they just take what's there because they know that they'll probably need it at some point. So that's why I'm a big BPA guy.
Yeah, boom, you read my.
Win and succeed in the salary cap era, then like yes, you need to draft well. But for me, and just bringing it full circle, like when we're talking about the Ravens and we're talking about the Eagles, what do those teams do is that they keep it simple and they just take what's there because they know that they'll probably need it at some point. So that's why I'm a big
Yeah, boom, you read my mind too. And that like there's a ton of emphasis on the draft, and so much is because of the business side of football, right? Like you want the controllable contracts, being able to win on rookie deals or have cheap players on rookie deals, cheap productive players on rookie deals is a cheat code for a lot of rosters, right? But if you're going into the draft having had a bad free agency period or an undesirable free agency period where you're left with a ton of needs, you're going to put yourself in a tough spot, right? Because there's only so many avenues to from this point forward. Like you're talking about training camp cuts and well, like, yeah, you can still make trades or whatever, but like how many legitimate players are going to be on the move from now until week one, right? So it's really your last ditch effort to improve your team for 2020 for the upcoming season. So, but it's only one piece of the puzzle, man. Good GMs do everything. They trade, they sign good free agency, they sign good free agents to manageable contracts. They find good players in the draft. Maybe not like every pick, but you find good players. So, yeah, it's just one method of operation for GMs to improve their teams. So, as mentioned at the top of the podcast, our very own Chris Boombaka got to speak with Fernando Mendoza, the presumptive #1 overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, Las Vegas Raiders, all that stuff. Boom. Excited to hear your interview. Let's give it a listen.
Let's rewind a few years and say that Cal never calls. You don't end up getting your business degree in 3 years from Haas. There's no Kurt Signetti, there's no confetti and all that, no Heisman, just a Yale degree and some fun memories playing Ivy League football because that was the original path, right?
Yes, sir, it was.
So what does your career path look like in the financial world? Saying you have that, Yale, some sort of business background, and you just kind of did similar internships that you did out on the West Coast, maybe New York, or you live in Connecticut. Like, take me through, like, what does 10 to 20 years of Fernando in the financial industry look like?
Yeah, I believe that. I mean, first of all, the internships and career paths on the West Coast are different than the East Coast. The West Coast is more VC, PE, while we have on the East Coast, it's more kind of like the brick and mortar finance, or some people call finance industries. And I believe that if I went to Yale, first of all, I think it would have been a very cool experience to have people who definitely are a lot smarter than me to learn from them and be able to make friends with those people, similar to the experience I had at Berkeley. But I know I would want to go into the finance industry. I assume my career would go through a couple internships, then I become an analyst, and we see where my life would take me from there. However, I think there's a lot of value in those careers, as not only are you able to support and provide for your family, you can also change other people's lives with wealth management, such as US Bank does, and then also being able to help people with their business. And there's just so many different types of avenues that you can go with, and helping other people manage their money and helping people maximize their growth to help them support their family, that I think is very rewarding. Evidently, that alternate part of the multiverse or universe is not it's not this reality. However, who knows? Maybe in the future, after football, there can be a career with that.
Exactly. And you still get to do things like this with US Bank that keep you involved
Yeah.
in the space.
Best of
It's
both
such a
worlds.
Yeah, exactly. It's such a big space too. Like so many different strategies. But what's the best piece of business financial advice that you have ever received?
I think the best business advice that I have ever received is one, to have a growth mindset. Not only have I learned in the hospital business, I've learned from the great football coaches I've had. The markets, the financial literacy, it changes every single day. And to really have a growth learning mindset and to learn from mentors who've done it and been successful with it has been extremely helpful in my financial and football career. With NIL, you're exposed a little bit to the financial side, and it's really getting ahead of those retirement accounts. It's being safe and smart with that money because you realize that, hey, that money, NIL money is not going to last forever. Hence, college careers only can lasting up to 5 years. I know some people play 8 years, but
Yeah,
in reality, you probably
depending
only
on
get
your
paid
law,
one.
the laws in your area.
Yeah, in reality, you probably only get paid 1 to 2 years, any real money. So I think it's just really for my journey, and learning from the hospital business, it's been such a upper echelon step that I've been able to take. However, I know that I still have a lot to learn, still have a lot to grow, and I'm really excited for the next step. As a lot of people say, hey, invest it, forget about it, and you can see it in 10 years. And I think that's the best piece of advice I've received.
Have you thought about how you might invest that first NFL paycheck, and will you spend anything on yourself? You're famous for, not investing or, investing yourself in maybe football and educational ways, but not necessarily maybe something nice and pleasurable for yourself.
Yeah, in college for the NIL, my largest expenses were finishing out my Berkeley degree at Haas. And it was a couple other football type expenses, whether it was a mechanical scan. And so I look forward on that note. There's going to be personal expenses. However, my mindset is if I can invest in the market and invest in myself, I hope to see those returns, whether it's a 10% return, an 8% return, 15% return, whatever that may be, in not only the market, but also in my own growth and development. I think that's the best investment that I can make.
And speaking of growth and development, I know the last few months you've been putting in work, getting ready for this for the pre-draft process, and we're less than a month away here talking before that first round of the NFL draft. Who have you really taken to watching as you study film across the league, and who are some of the guys that really stand out to you that you would like to model yourself off of when you do enter the league?
Yeah, I mean, then there's a lot of guys that I model myself after and watch and learn from. And in reality, I'm not going to be a you know a carbon copy of anybody in the league. In these past couple of months, I have watched a lot of Brock Purdy, Sam Darnold, and Matthew Stafford film. Those are kind of, I guess, the NFC West that I've watched a
Yeah.
lot of football from. However, I just really like how they are very efficient within their system. They're very efficient within their system and their point guards. Matthew Stafford, evidently Hall of Famer, but uh, and those other guys, looks like they're well on their way as well. However, just to see the way that they've grown through the game, whether it's Brock's first game, they get subbed in against the Dolphins, to the now, or Sam, from his first game in Seattle, then all the way to the Super Bowl, or how you know Matthew Stafford, how he's developed. I think it's always very interesting to see, and to see the overlap from some college concepts that we ran to the more West Coast NFL concepts that I hope to run in the future.
Yeah, studying the Shanahan McVay tree tape is never a bad idea if you're trying to learn some NFL offense, I would imagine.
Oh yeah, I think it's a great learning tool because you never know where you're going to go in the NFL draft. However, learning an offense and prepping yourself for that and that process, I think is very valuable.
All right, quick rapid fire game here, Fernando, and we'll get you out of
Love
here.
it.
We really appreciate you taking the time. Uh, putting you back in the B school hot seat for just 4 or 5 questions here. Favorite business and financial news source?
Ooh, Wall Street Journal, because I got featured on it, so got me a little bit of street cred there.
Is in more ways than one. Yeah, no,
In
that's
more ways than
always
one. Yeah, no doubt.
always a good one. Favorite business acronym?
Um, I always I always like to think about as a football player my inputs and outputs. So I really like ROI, return on investment. And I think like Nick Saban always says, hey, is this decision gonna make you a better football player or not a better football player? There's only two ways to go. And I think with that ROI mindset, I can be appreciated.
Always a good one. ROI.
Yeah.
Favorite Excel trick?
Ooh. I would say VLOOKUP. It's just something that, honestly, it's pretty basic, and it got me to pass my Excel test in high school.
There you go. I thought we were gonna get something a little bit more intricate, but hey, you know what? For the masses,
So,
that always works.
sometimes you gotta get the basics right there. Sometimes you gotta check it down. You know, gotta do the deep play every play.
I'm sure, over the next year, you'll be asked plenty of times about your welcome to the NFL moment, but what was your welcome to the internship moment?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. I would say as a football player, you're balancing, especially as a college football player, you're balancing two professions. And to really go into the internships and realize that people next to you, it's not, I kind of viewed it like, oh, this is great. Like my mindset's optimistic, like always have fun mindset. It's like, oh, well, this is like actually pretty intense. And the internship, it's okay. This is your interview. Not only getting an internship, but actually realizing that, hey, this is your interview to get a job in the future. And I would say my welcome to internship moment was when I was with a commercial real estate firm, and they asked me essentially to run data on this Excel sheet. And I was like, okay, great. And the way they asked me to organize it, I was like, oh, this can take a lot longer than I thought. And it did take a lot longer. It was like basically all night. So that was that was a good opportunity.
All right, last one. Do you know the rookie scale slot number for the number 1 overall pick in terms of salary?
I do not. I honestly am not super focused on that, whether it's number one or number, one, whatever. Number 199 or the last pick of Mr. Relevant in the draft. However, I do know that how the salary cap has been evolving, and they got pushed this year. And you see that with the great deals in free agency.
All right, boom. That was an excellent conversation with Fernando Mendoza, again, presumptive number 1 overall pick in the 2026 NFL draft. What's the highlight of him for you? What do you think about Fernando? Just on a personality level, boom. Is he gonna mesh in an NFL locker room, you think?
Yes, 100%, because he's just a lowest common denominator guy, and I mean that in a good way of like he'll find commonality with everybody, and he's always going to bring his best self. So I think people will just really appreciate that earnestness. And as a leader in the locker room, which he will be as a quarterback, even as a rookie, maybe not vocally, but I think he'll have people gravitate towards him.
Jacob, what do you think? Over under week 6, where Fernando was shirtless on an airplane wearing everybody's jewelry from the Raiders. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to take the under there. I think if Kirk Cousins takes him under his wing, that's going to be the first thing he's got him doing after a win, So as long as the Raiders can get a win in the first 6 weeks, I think we're going to see that happen.
All right, guys, it's the season of mock drafts. So we have a special mock draft for you, fair listener and reader, viewer. Jacob and Boom are going to alternate picks here. I don't know who has the number 1 overall pick here. Do we have to flip a coin for this?
I think
Do we
that's
have
up to our
decide?
commissioner, which is
It's
you.
up to the commissioner. Okay, I wish you had a coin here, but you know what, Boom? Since you're a veteran here, I'm going to give you the number 1 overall pick. All right, we can go from there. So we're going to go back and forth on these picks. We're going to do all 32 picks in the first round. Hopefully, it's nice and no debates here, right? We all want to be happy. It's just a mock draft, right? But Boom. With the first pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Las Vegas Raiders select.
Dun,
Ooh.
dun, 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 dun. Fernando Mendoza, quarterback, Indiana.
Yeah.
Pretty simple.
I mean,
Moving on.
no secrets here. No secrets here, right? All right. Number 2, Jacob. The New York Jets have the number 2 pick. Let's start here. This draft starts at number 2. Who you got?
Yeah, the draft does start here. We talked about this a little earlier on the episode. It's probably going to be either David Bailey or Arvell Reese. I'm going to pencil David Bailey in here because he gave me this pick. He's just so productive. He's got the speed off the edge that, Aaron Glenn and the Jets are going to love. He's pro ready, plug and play option. So we'll go with him as the number 2 pick here.
All right. Boom. Number 3, the Arizona Cardinals. Interesting team. It feels like there's not a lot of buzz about the Cardinals entering the draft, but they're sitting here with the number 3 pick. Arvell Reese still on the board. Who are you taking?
We saw a top 5 pick go on the move on draft night last year. I wouldn't be surprised if the Cardinals pull a similar move this year, but if they're sticking and picking, Arvell Reese, Ohio State linebacker.
Yeah, there's a the thing about Reese is like he projects as a a project player at the next level, especially at edge, right? But he's still a very good off-ball linebacker, right? So if teams are looking for at least that floor of, you know what, maybe this won't be a complete disaster of a pick, you can look at that, right? Too. All right, Jacob, number 4, the Tennessee Titans. Select.
We're going to go with Jeremiah Love, the running back from Notre Dame. It's a little bit early for a running back, but there seems to be buzz gaining that the Titans want a playmaker to pair with Cam Ward. Jeremiah Love has a good head on his shoulders and is a true 3-down playmaker who will make an impact as a great runner and a great weapon in the passing game. So we'll have him come off the board here and see what happens next.
Boom. Robert Saleh once famously said, you can't put a price on a home run hitter. Jeremiah Love certainly is that. But we move to the New York Giants here at the number 5 pick. The Giants select who? Boom.
Yeah, you could go probably tackle or really anywhere. Sonny Styles is the safe pick, so I'll go Sonny Styles, the linebacker out of Ohio State.
Jacob, any thoughts on the Styles pick at 5, potentially?
I love it, actually, Joe. I've been kind of between the two Ohio State defenders there, either Styles or Downs, just because Harbaugh seems like a true BPA guy, and he loves having playmakers in the middle of his defense. Styles is a true sideline-to-sideline threat, so I think he could really marry that quality Giants pass rush to their back end, which is slowly but surely improving. So I think adding Styles could give them a really great defense really quickly.
Speaking of consider Downs too. Makes sense. If Jeremiah Love is on the board for 5 for the Giants, I could see it happening come draft night.
So he wasn't on my board.
Hmm.
Well, I mean, Jacob took him.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's
All right, Jacob. So we just talked about, some great defenses. Let's talk about a great defense. And the Cleveland Browns have a pretty great defense, at least on paper. Who do you think they take at number 6?
Yeah, so I think with their they have 2 first-round picks. I think they're going to go wide receiver and offensive tackle with the 2 of them. I think they're actually going to take a receiver first because the tackle depth that projects to be on the board in that 24th pick range looks good to me. So I'm going to give them Carnell Tate from Ohio State. Smooth route runner, really good contested catch guy. He's just going to be a rock-solid NFL player and give whoever Cleveland's quarterback is a true top target to have at their disposal next year.
Boom. Number 7, the Washington Commanders. We've heard all about how veteran of a team they are, which you can also read as old. So they need to get younger in a hurry. And the young pick at number 7 is going to be who?
It's going to be Caleb Downs. I also considered Ruben Bain.
Caleb, I love that pick. Dan Quinn, I think that makes a ton of sense.
Could see them going edge, though. They need pass rush help at.
Mm-hmm. All right, Jacob. Number 8, the New Orleans Saints. They got a good first season from Tyler Shuck. What do they do with the number 8 pick to help the quarterback, potentially?
Yeah, so I'm actually not going to have them help the quarterback here yet. I want to give them a top cornerback here. I think you're looking at Mansour Delane and our good friend Jermod McCoy there. But I'm going to go with Delane because he is the LSU product, so he's sort of local. And he played last year. McCoy was out all last year with an injury. I like Delane here. I think that, hey, just think about that New Orleans defense improving and get a receiver in the second round for Tyler Shuck, and then you'll be in business with that team.
Boom. What do you think of Jacob's pick there?
I like it. I'm actually going to go. I had a different guy slide in there who I'm going to take at number 9 with Kansas City. I'm going to take Ruben Bain Jr. at 9 for Kansas City. I had him slotted 8. I think that would maybe be a better fit, but if like Jacob said, I don't think they could go wrong on defense. The Saints at number 8. So.
Yeah, I think number 9, to your point, Boom, and Ruben Bain Jr. makes a lot of sense. I mean, we've said it. Kansas City needs the pass rush help, right? They need to get after the other quarterback. I mean, we saw this past season they weren't very good in a lot of phases of the game, right? Like all 3 phases, they weren't great. So Ruben Bain adds a lot to that defense if he, you can get over the T-Rex arms thing. Jacob, number 10, the Cincinnati Bengals. Who do you have them taking?
So if the board falls this way, I have a feeling that the Cincinnati Bengals are going to be a little bit upset because a lot of the top defenders have already come off the board. So I have them now looking at cornerback because the best defensive player left, in my estimation, is Jermod McCoy. And the Bengals need help at every level of the defense. So this isn't a bad selection for them by any means. But, I think they probably had a sneaking suspicion that they want Ruben Bain here. I don't know if he makes it to them, but, McCoy can be that true number 1 cornerback. And if he's as good this year as he was in 2024 before he got hurt, he could end up being the best cornerback in this year's class.
if Bain does end up with Cincinnati, there'll be 2 first-round pass rushers 2 years in a row. They hope that this one works out better than the last one. All right, Boom. We talked about the Miami Dolphins at number 11 being a massive potential pivot point in the draft. What do you think happens if we stick and pick?
I'm going Spencer Fano there, the offensive lineman.
Yep, makes a lot of sense. They need to protect Malik Willis. All right, number 12, Dallas Cowboys, Jacob.
Okay, so this is becoming a tough pick because the Cowboys were probably hoping that one of those top 6 or 7 defensive players came off the board there, or was still on the board for them rather, but they're not. So I think they're going to have to make a little bit of a reach here. I think Keldrick Falk's a guy they would consider at 20 if he was still on the board there, but just given how the board has fallen, they need edge help. Falk has immense potential. He hasn't had the production yet, but he's one of the youngest players in the draft. So I think the Cowboys take a shot on him and say, hey, if he develops into a great edge rusher, we're going to look much better on defense. So give me him here at 12. It's not an ideal spot for the Cowboys if the draft falls like this, but I think they'll be happy with him in the long run.
Always the option to trade out of the pick too. We're just
That's
not
why
doing that.
I see them moving around for sure.
Yeah, makes
Agreed. I think they're a good trade up or trade down candidate.
They're going
sure.
up. I think they're going up.
Going up. All right, number 13, the Los Angeles Rams via the Atlanta Falcons, who traded away a couple firsts last year, future first last year. What do you think, Boom?
I could see the Rams going up too if they really want a guy because they have draft capital. But I'm going to go wide receiver here for them. Welcome to Los Angeles, Jordan Tyson.
Tyson's a guy that a lot of people are concerned with the injury history, of course, but
If he can stay healthy though.
Yeah. I mean, you can't predict health like you can't predict injury, right? Like just the way it goes. Like a guy who maybe has an injury history could stay healthy for the rest of his career. Like it's the way it happens. So we heard the trade rumors around Devontae Adams. Sean McVay was very open about it. He's not long for Los Angeles. He won't be there beyond the season. So I think supplementing Matthew Stafford or whoever their future quarterback might be beyond 2026 will certainly benefit from having a target like Jordan Tyson there. All right, number 14, Jacob. Baltimore Ravens select.
So I think the Ravens, if Jordan Tyson was still on the board, they might like to take him. I think Mekhi Lemon could work too, but then you'd have him and Zay Flowers as 2 smaller size receivers. So I'm going to look at the offensive line, and we always know that the Ravens take players who are falling. Francis Maui-Noah could easily go in the top 10, and I think he ultimately will. So the fact that he's on the board at 14 here, I think they run this pick in, say, hey, yeah, is he a natural right tackle for the NFL level? Sure, but we can also play him inside. They have a major need on the interior offensive line, and Maui-Noah would bring great toughness and power to that position. So I love the idea of getting him on the Ravens at this point.
Not too worried about potentially spending a top 15 pick on an interior offensive line, Jacob?
Not really, because I think with Maui-Noah, he has the capability of playing tackle. So you're not just taking him purely as a guard. You're just saying, we have a couple tackles. Ronnie Stanley probably won't be around forever at this point. So maybe they take him with an eye of saying like, hey, maybe we'll eventually, move him back outside to tackle, but play him at guard right now while we have a bigger need there. So I think you get creative with Maui-Noah and just say, he's a great offensive lineman. We'll figure out what the best spot for him is.
I like it. All right, Boom. Tampa Bay Buccaneers coming off a relatively injury-filled and disappointing season. This is a crucial year for them, 2026. Where do you see them going in the draft?
Yeah, I think they surprised some people last year by going Emeka Egbuka at number 19. And this year I could see them surprising people again at a skill position, number 15. Kenyon Sadiq, the Oregon tight end.
I like that a lot. Best tight end in the draft, Jacob?
And they have a need there. No disrespect to Kate Otten.
No, absolutely.
And
Love
I think
watching those guys play.
He's such a good compliment for Otten too, because Sadiq has that, high-end athleticism that Otten doesn't necessarily lack, but he's more of a rounded tight end. Sadiq can do everything, but he's a really threatening receiver. So I love that pick, Boom. I would, again, if I'm the Buccaneers, he's on the board, I am very happy about that.
All right, Jacob, number 16, the New York Jets via the Indianapolis Colts in the Sauce Gardner trade. Who do the Jets take here? Be nice, please.
I will be nice to you, Joe, here. They get David Bailey, and now they're going to get another pro-ready weapon in Mekhi Lemon. I think there's a world in which Mekhi Lemon is off the board by this point, so the Jets are getting a good value here. Just an excellent slot separator, a guy who can get open very easily, has really great hands for a guy who's under 6 feet tall, too. So he's not going to be like a big contested catch weapon at the next level or anything like that, but he's going to be able to survive through contact. So I think pairing him with Garrett Wilson long term could set up the Jets for success, provided that they can eventually find a quarterback to lead them to the promised land, Joe.
Fun. They have a quarterback to lead them to the promised land. Didn't you hear Aaron Glenn? He used those exact words. Oh, we'll see. Anyway, boom, at number 17, the Detroit Lions are picking. Who do you have them taken in this exercise of ours?
2 centuries ago, we came up with the Monroe Doctrine, and in 2026, the Detroit Lions are taking Monroe Freely, the tackle from Georgia.
I love it. I love it. Jacob, you're an offensive line guy. Any thoughts on Monroe?
Yeah, I like him a lot. He has the best left tackle potential of any of the top prospects in this year's class because he's 6'7", 315 pounds. His mom, I believe, is a yoga instructor, so he has great flexibility from learning from her. So yeah, no, this is the stuff that I pick up along the way, Joe, and it's all just in there forever now. So he's gonna bulk up and he's gonna be super flexible. Really good potential left tackle. Love him pairing with Penei Sewell. I think that's a great move for the Lions.
Love that. All right, Jacob. Lions NFC North rival, Minnesota Vikings are picking number 18, and they select who?
Yeah, this feels like it's in every single mock draft I've read, but we're going to go Dylan Thieneman, the safety from Oregon. He's just a super athletic safety. The Vikings need to replace Harrison Smith. And, Brian Flores loves having versatile weapons in his defense, and Thieneman should be able to become that. So I like that fit here. I just every time I want to do something different here, I just can't bring myself to do it. Thieneman's just too good of a fit.
Number 19, boom, your feisty cats are on the board.
Only fitting that I get to pick for them. Only thing that I get to pick for them, and then I get to make a favorite pick maybe of this first round mock. Give me Casey Concepcion at number 19 to the Panthers.
I like that. The Panthers Bryce Young needs more help. Listen, it's weird to say the jury's still out on Bryce Young, right? We've talked about them at length on the vodcast, boom. Like there are games where he looks totally lost and then he turns it on in the fourth quarter. Just get him some more offensive help with Dave Canales, right? I think that's the key there. So I like the pick. All right, number 20, the Dallas Cowboys, part of the Micah Parsons trade, have the Green Bay Packers pick. Jacob, who are they taking number 20?
Yeah, this is another spot where the Cowboys are still reeling from not landing one of those top defenders at 12, but I think they are going to go defense again. I'm going to have them look at the cornerback position, I think, and I'm going to go Avion Terrell from Clemson. Look, he's got NFL bloodlines. His brother AJ plays for the Falcons, and the younger Terrell brother, he was very good at Clemson. He was very productive. So I think he's just a plug and play starter for the Cowboys, and they desperately need that in that secondary. So Terrell will be the pick here. You can go any number of cornerbacks, but Terrell's the guy I have rated slightly above some of the other guys like Colton Hood, Brandon Cisse, and Chris Johnson, who's a favorite of our friend Ayrton Ostley.
All right, boom. Number 21, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Again, a pretty quiet team. The world waits with bated breath to see what Aaron Rodgers is going to do. Maybe he'll come back. If so, are the Steelers playing that? If not, whatever. The Steelers draft marches on, right? So who does Mike McCarthy and the rest of the Steelers take at number 21?
Man, it's this is not a fun pick at all because I don't really see them going defense here. And I mean, offensive line could make sense, but they also don't have like too crazy of a need. I actually like their right guard, who I think was a rookie last year. That Zach Frazier is already one of the best centers in the league. They've addressed the tackles kind of recently, so maybe they go tackle, maybe they go Caden Proctor, maybe they go interior with the Penn State kid. So I'm gonna phone a friend here. This is I'm outsourcing this pick to either Joe or Jacob. I've narrowed it down. So you have.
I'll take it.
Joe.
I'll take it. With the number 21 overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Ty Simpson.
I knew that was.
Listen, man. If you're the Steelers,
This is Kenny Pickett all over again.
It might, but listen, it might
literally
be
number 21.
Right? It very well might be, right? But here's the thing: if you're the Steelers and you saw what Aaron Rodgers put on the field last year, I don't think signing him and expecting him to reach any sort of high level play again makes any sense, right?
Mhm.
Like, I know everybody's fantasizing the Mike McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers reunion and how well that's going to go, all this stuff, but I think if you're the Steelers, give Mike McCarthy a young, moldable quarterback. We've seen him do it. We've seen him build offenses. Like, listen, for however bad the Cowboys were in the playoff, they put together explosive offenses with Dak Prescott. And part of the reason that they hired Brian Schottenheimer as McCarthy's successor is because they wanted to keep that system and that offense in place because it works so well, right? Like, the continuity is a big thing. So listen, I trust McCarthy to nurture a young quarterback. I just think it makes a lot of sense. Like, the Steelers have to do it at some point. Like, they got to try again. They can't keep going back to the well with these veteran players or Will Howard. Stop trying to sell me on Will Howard, please, Mike McCarthy. Like, nobody is buying that Will Howard, it might be a perennial All-Pro or whatever it is that you've been saying. So I like Ty Simpson to the Steelers with pick 21. All right. Love it. Love it. Just makes sense. All right. Jacob, number 22, Jim Harbaugh and the Los Angeles Chargers. Select.
So you swooped in and saved me, Joe, by putting Ty Simpson at 21, because I thought Boom was going to end up taking Vega Ioane from Penn State, the guard, just as a plug-and-play option on the left side to replace Isaac Seumalo. I think if he's on the board for the Chargers, Jim Harbaugh is going to be very, very excited because they need a lot of help on that interior offensive line. I know they've signed Tyler Biotish in free agency to play center for them, but they still need help at both guard positions. Vega Ioane is going to be a plug-and-play stud at the next level. Wouldn't surprise me if he goes top 15 in this draft, but again, we talk about positional value. Guards don't go early often, but I think we're going to look back at this and say, man, someone should have really taken him earlier than this.
Huh. Oh.
I think you're right. I think it's going to be soon, Boom.
All right, Boom. Number 23, the Philadelphia Eagles. A lot of organizational tumult surrounding Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni and AJ Brown and all this stuff, the rumors and all that. Are they going to have another good draft? Because wow, what's his? I can't believe I almost said Howie Rose.
Howie Roseman.
Yeah, Howie Roseman. I was like, it's like, that's not right. My goodness.
Shout
Totally
out Howie
forgot
Rose,
about
though. We love Howie. Rose.
Yeah, retiring this year. Anyways, is Howie Roseman going to have another home run pick here in number 23? Boom.
It won't be a home run pick in 2026, but maybe in 2028, 2029, 2030, because he's going to go with Max Ilianshore. I don't know how you say the last name. Sorry to Max, as I butchered that. But the tackle from Arizona State, the future Lane Johnson replacement over at right tackle.
I like it. And the Eagles always pay attention to their offensive line, right? Just routinely, one of the teams to just consistently draft players and not have to worry about the rest. So it's a smart pick. Boom. All right, 24, the Cleveland Browns have another first-round pick as part of the Travis Hunter deal from last year. Jacob, who did the Browns select?
Yeah, so I said it earlier. I had the Browns at 6. I have the Browns at 24. They're going to go wide receiver and offensive tackle. Had to go wide receiver earlier. Still some good tackles on the board. I think Caden Proctor from Alabama has the most upside. He is 6'7", 352 pounds, yet still has great movement skills. Like, this guy's potential is through the roof. And the Browns already have one giant tackle on the roster in DeJuan Jones. So why not add another one, Joe? Plug him in on the left side. And I think the Browns could even consider, Proctor earlier than this if they wanted to trade up from this spot. So I think they're getting great value here.
Yeah, and listen, Jacob, I got to ask you this, right? Helmet scouting is no fun, but Alabama linemen in the NFL, what do we think?
Yeah, I think to your point, helmet scouting is fun, but it's just not productive in terms of evaluating people on an individual basis. I think Proctor, too, you look at his performance at Alabama, and I would describe it as uneven. You would see at his best his potential, and then you'd also see games where you're like, oh, he's not having his best outing. So I think he's the type of guy, though, you get into an NFL room, and if you get the right guy to coach him and get the potential out of him, the sky is the limit. So I'm not worried about him being from Alabama. I know a lot of people will say, like, well, Evan Neal was a giant guy, and now he's a giant bust for the New York Giants. But
wow,
I don't think it's the same thing,
Where did Tristan Wirfs go to college?
Iowa, right?
Oh,
Iowa.
okay. Why did I think he was Bama? That doesn't make
Because the
Somebody else
guy
in
who
that
was
draft?
drafted before him went to Bama, right?
that might make sense.
Yeah, that was
Who's-
Jedrick
who's-
Wills. Jedrick
Yes,
Wills
Jedrick
Jr.
Wills.
As a,
Mhm. Yep.
Browns.
Yep. All right, boom. Number 25 pick, Chicago Bears, coming off a playoff appearance. Caleb Williams looks like he's coming into his own. Who did they select with this pick?
Yeah, I'm going pass rush here. Just pulling up my rankings real quick. We still have Akeem Mesidor on the board, correct? He has been taking the Miami edge rusher. Edge rusher Akeem Mesidor to the Bears at 25.
All right. All right, Jacob. Number 26, Buffalo, Joe Brady in. Out to Sean McDermott. Josh Allen remains, and so does Haley Steinfeld. What do you think with this pick at number 26?
Yeah, so I was firmly ready, Joe, not to take a receiver here because I was thinking to myself, oh, they're not going to have great receivers on the board, but there are two that I really like here. Omar Cooper Jr. and Denzel Boston. I think either could be successful. I'm going to have them go with Cooper, though, because he has a little more Debo Samuel in his game. And I think that Denzel Boston as a bigger bodied receiver is, I don't want to say redundant with Keon Coleman because Keon Coleman hasn't done anything yet. But if they want to keep Keon Coleman, I think they go with a little bit of a different mold than Omar Cooper.
Doesn't sound like Keon might be long for Buffalo, but we'll see. We'll see how it shakes out. Boom, you sounded like that pick might have gotten sniped from you. Who did the 49ers take at number 27?
No, so I definitely considered Omar Cooper Jr. there or at 29 to the Chiefs. So I was really circling him for those guys, but with Cooper Jr. off the board, a guy that I actually saved this analysis for when he came off in the mock. Like, he's the epitome of, if I see it, like, I believe it. Like, we've seen that guy make big play after big play and big game after big game. He's going to be a stud at the next level. I really do believe that. I almost took him at 13 with the Rams, over those other tier 1 guys that maybe are ranked a little bit higher than him. But I absolutely love Cooper Jr. I'm going Caleb Lomu, tackle out of Utah.
All right.
Yeah, you could probably plug him in interior if you need him, and I think 49ers could definitely use some O-line assistance.
Yep. And not only that, but Trent Williams appears like he's reaching the back 9 of his career, right? Or maybe on the final 3. So we'll see how San Francisco addresses their pick. And Jacob, number 28, Houston, very interesting team. Monster defense last year. Questions now about CJ Stroud. They picked up his 5th-year option. He's not going anywhere. But how does Houston address their roster in the draft, pick number 28?
Houston is honestly one of the hardest teams to mock for because they don't have glaring, obvious needs in a lot of places. So I think they're going to emphasize kind of drafting for the future here. If Maxi Hanator was not already off the board in this mock, I think he'd be the perfect kind of developmental tackle to eventually take over for Braden Smith on the right side. So I'm going to go with a different tackle option. Blake Miller from Clemson, super tough, very experienced. I believe he made 54 starts at Clemson. So you bring in that guy to understudy Braden Smith on a 1-year contract and then plug him in as your plug-and-play right tackle. I think that gives you good protection in front of CJ Stroud. So then if Stroud face plants again, you won't have any sort of excuses about, the offensive line or the receivers aren't healthy. Like, this needs to be the year they find out, is CJ Stroud the guy?
All right, boom. Pick number 29. The Kansas City Chiefs received this from the Los Angeles Rams as part of the Trent McDuffie trade. What do you think Chiefs do at this spot?
Yeah, I was just looking at our history earlier. I guess I took Ruben Bain, number 9, for the Chiefs, so that eliminates the need for a pass rush here. So I'm going to go with our favorite small school guy, Chris Johnson, the cornerback from San Diego State.
Yeah, they need a replacement for McDuffie, right? McDuffie's obviously a very good player. You don't get traded for a first for nothing. So I like that. All right, Miami Dolphins at number 30 have the Broncos pick as part of the Jalen Waddle trade. The first-round pick for Jalen Waddle. Wow. I mean, that's the world in which we're living, right? What do we think? What do we think, Jacob, do the Dolphins do at this spot?
I can't believe Denzel Boston's still on the board at this point. So I'm going to give them Denzel Boston and just say, hey, this is a guy that could easily go in the top 20. He's a big-bodied receiver. He's a downfield threat. I think he pairs very well with Malik Willis, who was very accurate in his limited sample size with the Packers last year. I think these two could end up being a dynamic tandem. So to get Spencer Fano and Denzel Boston in the first round, that would be
Mm.
a massive win for the Dolphins.
Yeah, it's a massive win for a team that needs to rebuild its offense desperately, right? And I love a guy who you can just throw effort balls to. You know what I mean? Like, just give me the big body receiver with the wingspan. Like, go up and get it. You know, Malik Willis has a tendency of trusting his receivers too, so you like to see that. Again, small sample size, but we'll see. I think that's a really, really, really smart pick there, Jacob. All right, last two picks here. Boom. Number 31, the New England Patriots, fresh off a Super Bowl appearance. Mike Vrabel and Elliott Wolf select who?
Zion Young, the defensive end out of Missouri, 6'6", 260. Definitely that type of presence that New England needs up front.
Yeah, love the size. Love the size. And Jacob, finishing out the first round of the 2026 NFL Draft in this mock is the Seattle Seahawks, who, coming off a Super Bowl win, Sam Darnold looks like the guy. Let Kenneth Walker walk in free agency. What do you think the Seahawks do in this spot?
I think in reality they probably trade down because they only have 4 picks in this year's draft. So they got a lot more needs than just 4, just in terms of depth. So I think they'll trade down. But if they were to stick and pick, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, the safety from Toledo, is still on the board. And I just feel like John Schneider's going to look at him and be like, man, this guy's ball production, his toughness. You know, they lost Kobe Bryant, the safety, in free agency. Plug him in next to Julian Love, add him next to Nicky Manwari. That defense is just going to get even scarier. So I like that option at this point.
All right, dark side defense improves once again. Potential for second Lombardi Trophy. We'll see. But again, that'll do it for this mock draft, and that'll do it for us today. Of course, we always want to thank you for watching and listening to the Sports Seriously NFL podcast. Of course, rate, subscribe, review us wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll see you back here soon for a post-2026 NFL Draft recap.